Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey podcast where me and my brother Charlie and our good friend Dan talk about English ice hockey, specifically the NIHL. And we got another team special. It's the Bristol Pitbulls team special. We've got this one and one more, and then we've done all 11 team specials, which are available on our YouTube and Spotify for you to watch. Yeah, if you don't know what the team specials are, we basically look at each team individually, each episode. We look at last season, how they did. We have an interview. We don't actually have an interview for this Bristol Pitbulls one. A lot of the players have actually been busy. But we'll go straight into the second part, which will be talking about the season coming up, our expectations and our ones to watch each. So yeah, this is the Bristol Pitbulls episode. As I said, if you haven't watched the other specials, do go watch them because the season starts. The official season starts in 2 weeks' time, but the friendlies start this weekend. Charlie, how you doing? We let you eat quickly.
Good, yeah. Just got back from the gym. I'm enjoying a raspberry Fanta. Never seen it before. It's not bad. Excited. Yeah, should be good. The
Nice
rivalry will be
one.
good this year.
Yeah, I finished my Pepsi Maxes, so I got water in my Solway cup, which I've still got actually. Dan, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all good, thank you.
Nice one. We play each other this weekend, so that'll be good. But it is a friendly,
Oh,
so the
that'll be the end of the
scoreline.
podcast after that weekend.
Wow, we'll be overreacting to all the friendly games, and that will decide it all. No, friendly's just yeah. Anyways, let's get into the Bristol Pitbulls. Last season it was another disappointing season. They obviously have missed out on playoffs the last 3 seasons now, and they have to get playoffs next year. They've made some ridiculous signings, which I think takes their team to the next level. But looking at last year, Charlie, disappointing. We're looking at the points wise. Obviously, Bailey Harewood finishes their top point scorer 73. And then the next was Nick Price of 56, and he only played two-thirds of the games. Tanner Butler obviously is the other import, and the next one after that was Smetham with 38, who actually had a really good season. So they really lacked that firepower, I think, last season.
Yeah, I think it was a disappointing season from top to bottom, really, across the lineup. Yeah, they finished bottom again, which no one wants to be the wooden spoon of the league. And yeah, I think there was elements of taking steps forward. I don't want to be fully negative on Bristol. I think there definitely was a better team spirit last year, and I think Barry managed to galvanize some players together. And I don't think they had the best squad on paper, which I think showed. But I think Barry managed to get them some big wins last year, and they had some big results throughout the season. But altogether, I think they needed some fresh faces in the squad. They needed some points, and then they needed some D. They did need the positions everywhere, and I think they have added to that. But yeah, altogether a disappointing season, but I'm sure there was some good games which fans can remember and speak about in the future.
Yeah, some positives if you want to look at that. Reece Smetham down for me was the biggest positive. Bringing him in last season on a 3-year deal. He finished second top point scorer as a Brit, 38 points, 17 goals. He looked really, really good adjusting to the National League, and I think this season you're looking at taking an even bigger step.
Yeah, I think with Bristol, that's the thing. Obviously, they needed to invest in these guys and sort of look ahead into the future. And obviously, Smetham is a guy that they believed in, and that's why they obviously went forward and went with that 3-year deal and sort of locking him in. And I think both for Bristol and for Smetham as well, I think it was really good for both parties because obviously Smetham was able to prove what he could do and obviously prove that he was the right guy for the job for Bristol to obviously give him that 3-year deal. And I think Smetham's going to be one of those guys that are definitely going to be they're definitely going to be looking at in the future. And you can really see sort of what Bristol were trying to do last year. We were obviously talking about the way they need to build that core, and a guy like Metham is going to be that perfect guy that is going to be the star guy in that core group in seasons to come because he's still obviously so young.
Yeah, they had a bit of import trouble, Charlie. Obviously, Nick Price had a bit of a slow start, but then he becomes probably one of the best imports in the league we've seen. He was really, really strong. Finished with 56 points in 33 games. He then wanted to leave. and played in the SPHL, where we've seen a few players come from to the national. They then had Wilinski come in, who was a bit of a sniper actually, scored a lot of great goals for them. They obviously had Napier, who didn't play. He played 40 games in the season. Butler played 43. So on the import front, they struggled to get that consistent run of games, and I think that did stop them from getting that playoff spot because you look at the other teams around them, the imports with the top guys getting them and carrying them to those import spots. And when you're struggling with imports, and yeah, we saw it with Romford a couple seasons ago as well.
Yeah, I think when you're a bottom team, the imports you have to get right. And if you get them wrong, you're missing out on a lot. And they definitely got Nick Price right. I think he was one of their biggest bright sparks of the season. I rate Nick Price super highly. I thought he was phenomenal last season. His biggest attribute is his fitness. He was on the ice for about 35, 40 minutes a night for Bristol, and he didn't stop and he didn't lose that intensity. And as you said, I think after maybe a couple of weeks, he really found his stride and was getting 2 points a night, and he carried them to some big games. And I think when he left the club, I do think their season took a big turn for the worst. They went from maybe being able to kind of chase the playoffs to really dropping down. Mitch Wilinski was not bad when he came in as well. He scored a goal a game, a very different player to Nick Price. I'd say he was probably less all-rounded and a big, like a fast sniper who knew how to put the puck in the net. So very different type of player, but yeah, I think they do need to get the imports right. I think they've definitely, in my eyes, from the outside, done a better job this year with imports. And yeah, I think imports is so crucial. I don't think it has fully worked out. I think Bristol have got a track record of having imports leave mid-season, which is not what you want as a team. So there's definitely some challenges, but I think Nick Price, Butler, Wilinski, and Napier brought a lot of kind of positives to Bristol.
Yeah, I think next season we'll talk about it in the second half, but I think they've kind of looked at the imports and gone, right, we've got our four imports now who I think we're going to have for the foreseeable future. Dan, another thing which doesn't help is Pims. I'm just going to read out a few here. Bailey Harewood 158, Tanner Butler 144, Cam Hamill 108, Reese Cochran 163. Bobby Reagan 77, Elliot Lewis 80. It's all right to take some penalty minutes. Some players obviously get bans and that puts some penalty minutes up. But Bristol, when you're trying to get that playoff spot in games, Pims are so big to a team and players taking a bit too many and putting on the PK. And we've seen how good the power plays are in the league and they're going to be even better next season. So staying out the box is key next season.
Yeah, I think most of them are picked up in that last game of the season as well, so that's even
Yeah.
better. But yeah, I think what it is with Bristol is obviously last season, like we said, it was tough for them, and I think sometimes the moment can get ahead of you, and especially when obviously you're down in a game, it's very easy to lose your head. And again, we forget how young that locker room is in Bristol, and obviously it's tough when you're going out and losing a lot of games in a row and you're going on these losing streaks. It's tough to sort of bring yourself back up, and sometimes you just sort of have to just calm it all down. But what Bristol found they did was they just sort of used to lose their head and sort of didn't really have any idea of what their actions were. And I think that's when obviously you get into even more trouble because then you're, like you said, you're going on the PK, you're having to kill a lot of penalties. That obviously takes the energy out of guys. You've got guys playing too many minutes than they should do, and it all just sort of snowballs into the wrong direction. And yeah, I think discipline's one big thing that Bristol are going to have to really sort out this season. And I think just sorting their locker room out as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the second half. We don't, as I said, we don't have an interview for this one. Hopefully, we'll be able to get a Bristol player on during the season. But we'll go into the second half, looking at this season coming up because there's a lot of changes, and we're going to talk about a lot of the new signings. But I'm going to start with the coach, because it was announced literally just gone this weekend that Ales Padalak will be the new head coach for the Bristol Pitbulls. And I was quite surprised about it when I first heard it. I did hear about it before it got announced. I think there was a lot of rumours going around. But Charlie, we know the Bristol team have struggled they have to listen to Ales, and I know Ales hasn't. I'm not calling him Ales. I'm calling him Padalecki because that's what we know him as.
Call him
Padalecki
Paddy.
is a
Paddy.
well-respected, as you Charlie say, he's got aura. But he's the coach, and they need to listen to him because he's won the playoffs obviously a couple years ago. He's worked under Slava for many seasons, and with a young locker room, they need to listen to him. And I know he's not signed the players. I think they signed the players before he come in, but they need to listen to him and try and buy into this because they have to get playoffs this season.
Yeah, they don't need to try. They just need to buy in.
Yeah.
Paddy's the coach, and he's got to get that respect he deserves. I don't know if he's had any assistant coaches announced, or is it just Paddy manning the whole bench? What a
Paddy
man!
with Barry and John, maybe John
What
Just
Dunbar.
aura.
aura! Yeah, what a guy! I actually love Padalecki. I just love him, and I actually really want him to do well. But then there are rivals, so it's a bit odd. But I love Paddy, and I do like the appointment, and I think, as you said, I don't know what to expect because I feel like this Bristol team it's very young. It's very new to the league. I think the signing of Dunbar and Batch is really crucial to the experience in the dressing room and supporting Padalecki in his first full-time head coach role. He was assistant coach at the Nottingham Lions last year.
There as well.
Um, and he was playing. So I think they definitely have to support him. Batch, Butler, now he's been there a couple of years. Dunbar, them guys need to really buy into Padalet, and it's such a young team. You've got like four guys they've signed who are coming straight out of America and Canada, and we need to see that buy-in because I think Paddy, from what we saw on the ice, he's got an amazing IQ. He had Slava to learn off for a while, but I think he'll have his own coaching style to Slava as well. But he would have learned a lot from how Slava goes in the dressing room. And yeah, you just need it's a very young squad, which I'm not a coach, but I can imagine are probably the harder dressing rooms to coach. But they've got some really experienced players in there who can support him. And yeah, I think it's a good appointment. I do. I really like the appointment. I think Paddy has a lot of potential to be a good coach. He knows the British League super well as well. He's played in England for like 10 years now, so he gets what it takes to win in this league. So yeah, good appointment. I think Bristol fans should be excited by it, but he needs time as well. You do have to give him time. If this first year doesn't quite go the way you think it will, you got to say to Paddy, what players do you want, what players don't you want, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, it does require a big buy-in, but exciting. A new coach to the league who's been around the league for a long time. We'll get into the goalies, and not much change from the end of last season, Dan. Obviously, Harry Thomas coming in, who I'll mention in a second, but Tommy Napier, the big one. A tough season for him last year. Obviously, we know the CV's got the resume playing in those big leagues, but it was always going to be a big change for him. And the National League is a very weird league, isn't it? And when you're playing for the team who did finish bottom, and had a lot of injuries, but also didn't play too great in front of you, it's very hard for a goalie to find some rhythm. And yeah, it was an all right season last year, and he's going to be hoping the team in front of him, which looks a lot more exciting. As Charlie said, there's some more experienced players. He's going to be hoping that they can play hard in front of him, and hopefully that will help him for next season. But I think if he can play to the potential, which a lot of people know he can, obviously playing in such big leagues previous season, and he can really work hard himself, I do think he could lead them to a playoff spot.
Yeah, Napier had some. But like, I watched a few Bristol games last season, and Napier had some really big games, and he came up big in a lot of moments as well. And I think, obviously, for Napier, the season before that was a bit messed up for him as well. Obviously, he ended up leaving a team
Yeah.
like halfway through the season. He didn't play for the rest of that season. I'm not sure, but I think he might have had an injury on his hand as well in that season, and I think that might have affected him for a bit too. And so I think coming into Bristol, obviously you're out of that hockey schedule, if you know what I mean. And he's coming into Bristol. It's obviously a team that's struggling, and you're new to the league, you're new to the UK, you're used to playing in these American leagues all around America, Canada. and you're coming into this team, and it's sort of a lot to take in at once. And I think Napier showed what he could do last season. And I think that's the reason why Richie Hargreaves has obviously given him another chance, because giving Napier another season in this league, I think we might see a different Napier going into this season. Now he knows the league, he knows what he's coming
Yeah.
into. He's had the whole summer to sort of prepare, and hopefully any sort of injuries that he picked up last season, he's been able to get over, and he's coming into this season fresh and ready to go, and sort of being able to be that stalwart goalie that Bristol need to win them games and steal them games on any night.
Yeah, Bristol is a very gung ho team. Sometimes you don't really know how they're going to play, kind of thing, in front of you, defensively and offensively. We had that absolutely crazy game against Bristol last year where Swindon won 9-7 and Morris scored 4 goals, and it was just a nutty game. And yeah, you're right. I think it was a very big adjustment for him with the National League. He's now played a season in it. He knows a lot of players in that league. You could always see he was up for the games, ready to go. And there was some games where Bristol go like 3 or 4 nil down, and it's so hard to try and stay in it. So yeah, I think it's a big season for him. I think this is a season where he's got to show maybe a bit like Max Wright did last year, where stealing a couple games, the D has improved, and we'll go into that in second. So there's a lot of pressure on him, but I think he's been in much higher pressure moments in his career. So he'll have plenty to show. Harry Thomas, just touching on him, really exciting goal. He's still so young, turning 17, and I think he got thrown out in some big games last year. Obviously with the little injury to Napier, so be another exciting season for him. I expect him to probably get 5 to 10 games, because you do have to give Napier that rest sometimes. But yeah, let's get into the D, Charlie, and we're going to start with the big signing, probably their biggest signing. I know there might be a bit of controversy. You got 2 great forwards, Canadians, but for me, this is their biggest signing. Josh Batch from the Cardiff Devils. They've struggled on their D all the last 3 years. Well, this guy's got bags of experience and should hopefully be able to lead those young D men as well.
Yeah, it's a very good signing. Josh Batch, I think 10 years in Cardiff, had his testimonial. Only 34 years old. He's not ridiculously old for coming down from the elite league. He's at that later age of his career. 6'4". He's an absolute beast. And yeah, very good D man. He's consistently played well. He played for GB this summer. He's played against Connor Bedard. So yeah, he's a good player. Like, there's no denying that. And I think he adds a wealth of experience into this dressing room, which is crying out for experience. And I think one of the things Bristol lacked last year is I really like Cochrane and Tanner Butler. But sometimes they're not the most level-headed in games.
Well, the Pim show,
I
don't
think the
it?
Pim show, and I think that's fair for me to say.
300
Um,
Pims for them together.
but but as we can see with Josh Batch, he does get Pims. He had 64 in one season, but last year only had 8, some years 20, 36. I think he'll be a very level head, and I think he'll be able to calm the team down. And I think the biggest trait he brings is on the bench. I think the leadership this guy's going to bring. I'd love to see him partnered up with Whitesay and help see Whitesay
Oh,
develop and grow as a player. And I just think, yeah, that leadership, that experience, it's unvaluable, and a team like Bristol is crying out for it. And yeah, great signing, and will have a big impact. I would have loved him in a Swindon shirt.
yeah, we always said, oh, we'd love Batch to come, but we did get O'Connor, and I think it makes sense us getting O'Connor for the way we play, and Batch going to Bristol for the type of player they need. And going on to the rest of the decor, Tanner Butler, quickly touching on him, obviously re-signing him for his third season. Sorry, the cat's trying to get out. Let me just let Kitty out. There you go.
Yeah, on
Right,
to
she's out. But yeah, Tanner Butler comes in and he's got to stay out the box, but I think there's less pressure on him now that he's going to play less minutes. Because Batch has come in, you can have that 1-2 punch down of Batch on one line and Butler on the other line. And like Charlie said, you can play a younger guy with Josh Batch, maybe Whitesay, and then you've got Cochrane and Butler on another line, and that top 4D is very solid.
Yeah, I think with Butler, he's another good guy that needs to get back to how we know he can play. Obviously, we saw him in that first season and in that first half of the first season he was in England, and he looked unreal. And we were talking about him a lot on the podcast, and then penalties did get in the way. So I think coming into this season again, like it's a much improved decor, it's a much improved team, and he just needs to stay out of the box and keep that level head like we've been talking about, and really play his best because we've seen the import D in this league, and we've seen how better teams are for it, and Bristol have got an import D man there that can compete with the best in the league, and but he's not been showing it because he's obviously been in a box, he's been suspended. He just needs to keep his head level and really take control of this team and really show. Obviously, he was the captain last year. Like I don't know if he's going to be going through a captaincy again this year, but if he is, you need that captain to be that guy that the team's going to look up to. These young guys are going to look up to, and he's going to really set the tone for the team and set the tone how he wants it to be played in the game.
Yeah. And Charlie, one thing we talked about was they didn't have many D men last year. A lot of them got injured, suspensions, and they didn't have anyone to cover. But this year they've really made sure. Well, they've got 7D, and you've got Jay King, Callum McGill, and Sam Smith all to fill that kind of fifth, sixth, and then seventh defenseman. And don't get me wrong, some of them could go up to that top four, but you've got that depth now, and I think that's key to Bristol in not overplaying guys, because you can throw out Callum McGill and Jay King together, the Scottish duo, and they can throw their body in front of everything. So I think the depth is going to be key to that decor this year.
Yeah, I think that's one thing they mentioned, and they've even got guys from the twos if there's major injury problems in brackets Lee Dewant ready to step back
Yeah,
up.
he's all right.
And
He's all
and
right.
so yeah, I think it's important to have depth. I think Bristol often have players leave mid-season. That may not be the case this year, but it's important to have guys who can come in and and yeah, fill them roles which are needed. And yeah, they've got some decent pieces. I think McGill needed a new start. I think his ice time started to drift at Hull, and he didn't really get much at the end of the year. So Bristol be a good place. It seems like Bristol have got quite a few Scottish lads as well, so he'll feel like he's at home. And then yeah, Sam Smith, I think he's got another big year. He actually I do think goes under the radar for Bristol a little bit. He could be that guy to play with Batch potentially, or Cochrane or Butler. So yeah, I think it's a decent little decor and it's much improved. Adding Batch is always going to improve any decor.
Yeah, and then you've got that import goalie as well, in Napier. So the whole defensive core as a whole, I think, has gone up levels because of the couple signings you make. Um, I'll quickly shouting out Jacob Whitesay as well. Big season for him, I think. He's been in the league a couple years now, still so young. As you mentioned, Charlie, if he's got that chance to play with Josh Batch, he's so talented. And he got 14 assists last year. He didn't actually get his goal last year, but he's actually got such a good shot down, hasn't he, in warm up.
He
So
gets
I
all the
think,
goals in warm up.
yeah, I think he just needs to rip it in a game sometimes. And maybe with Josh Batch there, he has that little bit of feels more comfortable being taking that offensive kind of defenseman role. So yeah, big season for him. Let's go on to the forward call then. So you get rid of, or not get rid of, but you don't re-sign your import forward in Walensky, and you use that extra import slot on so you can have two import forwards. And you sign two of the best import Canadians in the National League. And we'll start with a player who we know very, very well, and that is Jake Bricknell. And I think this is a huge signing for Bristol. And I think it will work for a team like Bristol who need a point scoring player, someone who can put the puck in the back of the net. Their top goal scorer last year only had 27 goals. Jake Bricknell had 57. He had 30 more goals than Bristol's top goal scorer last year. Got 107 points, was the second top point scorer. Do I think he's going to play at that level maybe he did at Swindon? No, because I don't think he's in as good team, and but I do think this is kind of a player who is going to take you. You're hoping is going to take you to that next level, which is a playoff spot, and you've got him on a 2-year deal as well. So Charlie, starting with Bricknell, I know we saw loads of him last year, but what do you think is it's going to be like next year with Bricknell?
Yeah, I think last year we got two different versions of Britnell when he settled.
Yeah,
And I think that the second version we had, the start of the season, he was settling into the league, gave away some silly penalties, and couldn't quite find his form. The second half of the season, he was impossible to stop. Um,
juggernaut with
he
points.
scored 57 goals last year. He knows how to find the back of the net, which is really important. I think if coached properly and his mindset's in the right place, they're going to get a very, very good Jake Britnell who's going to help win them games. He's going to score a lot of goals. They've got a good playmaker to go alongside him if they choose to do that, which I think they will. So yeah, it's a brilliant signing at the National League level. It reminds me a little bit of when they signed Alex Roberts, when they first came into this league. Everyone kind of was like, wow, this guy's insane. And I think coach him well, he will be an unbelievable player for you and he will get you so many important goals. And in a team like Bristol, like we've said from last season, they need goals and they need him to stay the whole year as well. And he signed a 2-year deal, so he's shown that commitment. They need him to play the full season and they need him to be on the ice scoring goals and not in the penalty box.
Yeah, I think I'll go on to that because it is key, Dan, that he does stay out of the penalty box because he's probably well, he is their best point scoring player. And you don't want him in the penalty box. And I know it's nice sometimes to see him drop the gloves. It's entertaining. The fans want to see it, but you if an opposition, for example, is throwing out let's say for us, for example, if we threw out Dylan Lipsey and he goes and fights Jake Britnell, you've got Britnell in the box for 5 minutes and you've got Dylan Lipsey. No disrespect to him, who's a fourth liner. He if he's got to focus on the points and getting them in that playoff spot, doesn't he? And we saw when he was at Swindon after that kind of first few couple months where he did get a few silly penalties, as adjusting to the league. He will get 2, 3, 4 points every single game if he's focusing on it. And I think that's the version which Bristol will want next season, and which I really do think he can.
Yeah, I mean, Bristol is a very different environment to Swindon. Obviously,
Yeah,
we know how Nell likes to coach his players, coach his imports. He likes to keep them under control and sort of
which is a
likes them
good
to
thing, I
play his
think.
way. Obviously, yeah, 100%. And I think going into Bristol, obviously, he is going to have that more. He's going to have a lot more freedom. Obviously, an example is we look at Gale when he was in Basingstoke. He had that freedom. Goes to Swindon, he's not got as much freedom. It's a bit like that. And obviously, Bricknell, fair play to him. He is just a goal scorer. Like the stuff that he did last season, the stuff that we saw. He came up in big games. He came up in different games. He made D-men look stupid. He had that one move that no one ever seemed to catch on to. He did it
Toe
about
drag.
5 times. But yeah, he's gonna be a player that Bristol are gonna love to watch. He's gonna be a guy that's gonna bring excitement to the pound every night. He's gonna be able to get the fans involved. The fans are gonna be ready to watch him. He's gonna be a fan favorite, but he does need to be careful. Like you said, he doesn't want to get too carried away with the environment he's in and get too carried away with the crowd. And sort of, we saw it in Coventry. I think is the most the recollection I can get is when he was obviously in that big environment. Every team was around him. He had the crowd on his back, and sort of that pressure got to him a little bit. And you can't let that happen in Bristol. He needs to be the guy that's just going to take the puck and score those big goals that we know he can do.
I think it. By the way, if they're like 4 or 5 nil down and they need a reaction or something like that, or just to get the crowd going, he will fight someone and he'll do that. I remember we were playing Sheffield, I think, and we were a few goals down, and he fought Tremblay, and it got the crowd going and everyone was hyped for it. So I'm not saying he shouldn't fight whatsoever, but I'm just saying you got to pick your moments, the right moments. You are the best player on point scoring player on the team. Moving on to the second Canadian, which is a completely different player to Bricknell Charlie, and that's John Dunbar. And I think this is kind of the perfect ideal duo you want. You've got your goal scoring physical player, and then you've got a very technical two-way assist maestro John Dunbar, and if they're playing on the same line, it could be dangerous, especially on that power play as well. So. And I believe he's on a 2-year deal, so it is a great little duo, and I know you love the way John Dunbar plays.
Oh, I think this is a phenomenal signing by Bristol. I think it's exactly what they needed. A 34-year-old import who scored 94 points and then 90 points in the National League. He has played countless years in the Elite League. He's played in Germany. He's played in France. He's played all over America. If the players don't listen to him, they won't listen to anyone. He's going to be a massive part in that dressing room, and they've got to buy into Paddy, Batch, and Dunbar, them guys, and Barry as well in that dressing room. Them guys are going to be the ones who are going to be saying, "Boys, young lads, we've got to play this style of hockey." And maybe some games it doesn't work, but we've got to keep digging through. And Dunbar's going to be hungry. Like, imagine getting 94 points and then 90 and not getting playoffs in either year. And you're joining a team which hasn't got a great track record with playoffs, so it's not going to be easier for him. But yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. The only worry, I guess you could say, is he is 34. He is getting older. But I still think he's going to be a very good import at this level, and he's the right guy to pair with Britnell. I think his two-way game's great. And I actually think he's underrated for scoring clutch goals. I remember he scored a lot of them last year, and I think when you need him to score a goal, he'll put it in the back of the net.
He's a very good overtime goal. So I think he scored an overtime winner against Bristol. It might have been a shootout goal against Bristol and a hat trick in the game as
I
well.
think Dunbar has gone under the radar massively in the last two seasons because he played for Solway.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
he
And
was one of
I'd
them guys
say,
who made Gardiner so good.
yeah, Gardiner wouldn't not Gardner's a great player. He wouldn't have been as good if he didn't have Dunbar. But Dan, we'll move on to the British players they've got around them. And we'll start with Bailey Harewood, because he is still going to be part of the Pitbulls. Now, it's very dependent on Cardiff, because I think Cardiff have dibs, but Cardiff also have a big squad. And it's great to see Harewood's finally, I guess, getting up a bit of a role where he is hopefully going to play a few more games for Cardiff. Hopefully, we see him a lot more in the Cup. I know he's played all the pre-season games. But I think Bristol still will have him quite a few games, especially those midweek games, maybe a Friday game. When Cardiff play Friday, Saturday, he might feature on the Sunday for a Bristol. So I still think he could play 30 plus games for Bristol, and they need him, don't they? Because you've got Britnell and Dunbar, but if they're not performing on the night, you need some secondary scoring, which is going to get the points. And Bailey Harewood's proven he can do that with Bristol.
Yeah, and obviously, I think he'll be playing quite a lot for Bristol still because obviously we know he can like do some unbelievable stuff on the ice, but I think he's still got to hit another level to be at that elite league standard. So I think there's still a lot to learn for him. But like you said, it's good that he's finally sort of he's a bit further ahead than he has been the past two
Yeah.
seasons with Cardiff. He's got that spot now, and there looks like there could be a spot for him, which
Was it's a
obviously I
new
do.
coach. It's kind of a new little era for Cardiff as well.
Yeah, and I've heard just from talking to people that he does like to give his young guys a chance, and I think Harewood's a guy that's been awaiting that chance, and he's been wanting Cardiff for however many years. I'm sure that's the team that he's been wanting to play for since he was a kid, and I think that's going to be a massive positive for Harewood this season. I think last season he didn't get as many chances with Cardiff as he wanted, and I think this season he's obviously got that Cardiff deal, and he's going to be playing in Bristol now. He's going to be thinking in the back of his head like, I've got that Cardiff role now. I need to be on top of my game every single night for Bristol. I want to be earning that spot in Cardiff, and I think that's just going to push him on even more. And I think that's only a positive thing for Bristol with the team that they've built around him as well this season. I think he's not gonna be the main guy. Like he's still gonna be a guy, but he's not gonna be the main one that's sort of gonna have to do everything. He can sort of take a step back on that front and really sort of focus on the best play that he can, and he doesn't have to play every other shift. He doesn't have to be on the ice all the time. He doesn't have to play all the big minutes. He can play his own game and in a way have a bit more freedom as well. And I think that's only going to be a good thing for him and Bristol.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go and play a line of Britnell, Dunbar, Harewood.
No,
That's
they
your three
shouldn't.
best players on one line, and you do need to spread them across the other lines. And players have got to step up. And the first player they've signed, Charlie, from America is Jacob Bryceland, who looks like the most exciting. And he's obviously featured for the Devils in their preseason games. He actually got a further assist in one of the preseason games. But he's probably going to be playing the majority of his games in Bristol this season. And he played in the USPHL Premier and scored a point per game there. And obviously, the Osborne twins have done that and they've gone to Milton Keynes. But I think Bryceland is going to get that opportunity at Bristol where he's going to be playing top 6 minutes, going to be playing with maybe he might be the guy to go between Dunbar and Britnell. We don't know. But top 6 minutes and in with a guy who's shown a good track record of scoring points, 6'2" as well. I think this is a very exciting signing.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most exciting signing they've signed out of Canada for me,
Yeah,
um, out of the Brits. And yeah, he looks really good, looks talented. It's extremely hard to predict how Brits will
yeah,
come when they come back from Canada. Some are really good and some really find it difficult to settle in the league
in the
because they
men's
were
league.
playing with people their own age and now they're gonna have guys trying to thump them all the time and yeah it's much hard, it's a weird way to adapt into the league. But if he adapts well, I think he can do really well. And I think definitely want him playing with more experienced National League player, potentially that being John Dunbar. But yeah, I think it's a good signing. I think he can do well.
Yeah. There's quite a few re-signings. Cam Hamill, I thought he was a bright spark from last year. Obviously he moved from Milton Keynes, got a bigger role with Bristol, and he got a lot of points. And a lot more points than he did at Milton Keynes. So another big season for him. He could possibly hop up onto that top six. Obviously, Ewan Hill, I thought he had a pretty good season. He's gone back to Romford. But they've signed a couple more Canadians, and one of them is another big guy, Dan, Max Wigfield. And he's 6'5". I think Bristol are going to try and be quite hard to play against. They've got some big players. 6'5". He's played in the NCAA three, which is a university in the third division of NCAA hockey. Sorry, that sounds quite basic. I've just repeated myself there. But yeah, exciting. He played USPHL Premier as well, got a point per game. But he's a bit more established. He's what 25 years old. So and he's certainly got the build to settle in the national. It's just points wise, how is he going to be able to perform in the National League?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like with a name Maximilian, like he can't be bad, surely. Like we can't just call him Max. We've got to go with the full name and call him Maximilian. Um, but yeah, I honestly, I don't know what we're going to see from this guy. Like
Don't know either.
he's going to come in with this height. He could be a very good net front presence. He could come in and be really good around the corners. I'm sure there's something that is in his game that can really help Bristol, and it's all going to depend on what that is. But I think what you're going to get with him is you're going to get a big guy. He's going to be able to hopefully hold the puck for a good amount of time, sort of create that zone pressure. Um, it's just all depends on his play style really, and obviously I think Barry and all that have obviously seen what he can do and seen that there's obviously a role for him in that team. Um, and I think it's another guy that is just an unknown, and it's one of these ones that it could be a very good signing if it comes off. If not, it's just you sort of have to go back to the board and try again. But I think Bristol are in the perfect position for giving these players a chance, and I think if they've done it right, I think it's a very effective way of signing players because they've obviously had experience overseas, they've had experience with different coaches, and now they're going to be able to bring their craft over to Bristol. That's obviously trying to grow something special in this team.
Yeah, well, another two unknowns, but I don't think there's too much pressure on them. Is firstly Dawson Williams, who's played over USPHL. Didn't score too many points over there, but I don't think he's going to come in, Charlie, and expect to get all those points. And then you got Owen Smetham, Reese Smetham's brother, who signed to a 3-year deal, and he's played in a lot of junior leagues. But yeah, again, bottom six guys who's going to get some opportunities this year, maybe with injuries, but they're probably going to be here in the long run, and Padalecki will hopefully develop them like Slava develops youngsters.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was Richie Hargreaves who made the signings because
Yeah.
it didn't sound like Paddy was coach. So I think Richie likes signing players from Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, don't know what to expect. I think there's a little less pressure on them guys. I think they're coming in as them kind of bottom six guys. And so if they work out, great. If they don't, um, yeah, it's one of them things. They've got the guys like Lipsy, Hamill, Morris, who they know what they're gonna do. Probably playing in that third line, maybe, but coming up to the second line, Barry as well. So these guys can kind of fit into them lines, work hard, skate hard, hopefully hit people like a truck. That would be fun, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you've got your top players in point scoring players, which they've lacked the last couple seasons down with Britnell, Dunbar, Harewood. But the secondary guys are going to be so important this season, aren't they? You're looking at Smetham, Reece Smetham. You're looking at Hamill, looking at Lipsy, Barry, who doesn't have to focus on coaching now, so he's going to be full-time player. They have to step up, don't they? Along with the decor, which has improved as well, and as we said right at the start with Paddy, they have to buy in, otherwise they're going to face another season where they don't get playoffs. They've got the players, they've got the talent, but they've had talent in the past, especially in that first season they come in and just missed out on playoffs. So they have to buy in because other teams are strengthened as well.
Yeah, and obviously you talk about these forwards as well. Obviously, they need to do the defensive duties too. They
Yeah,
need to be playing both ends of the ice. They need to be supporting these D men. We say about this D core being better. Obviously, even the best D core can't stop everything. So they need to have the forwards to buy into that defensive style that they need to do. They need to. I remember them talking about it last season and the season before that they really need to protect the house and sort of keeping everyone wide, and that's down to the forwards just as much as the D men. And all those depth players, they need to be playing both ends of the ice. They need to be using their body. You look at Wigfield, obviously he's a big guy, uses body, uses reach to be that defensive guy, and it can come back and sort of help out the D. And yeah, it's going to take a massive team effort. And I think Bristol, they like Charlie said, they sorted a lot of their locker room out last season. I think Bristol really did come together at some points in the season that just it's just gone. And I think they need to go into this season with that fresh mind and that excitement that's been built over the summer and really come together and show these Bristol fans that they what they deserve, and they deserve to see a well performing team and a winning team on the ice.
Yeah, well, that leads nicely into the expectations. And I think you've kind of summed it up really in terms of, well, the next step is that playoff spot. Whether that's eighth, whether that's first, who knows? But they need a playoff spot. By the way, I'm not expecting them to go and win the league. But Charlie, they
A
have to make
second in the
playoffs
league at the
this year.
minute.
You don't
So
you don't sign Britnell and Dunbar and not try and get a playoff spot. You have to get a playoff spot this year, don't they? There's pressure on them too.
Yeah, you got to get eighth, or seventh or sixth, but I predict maybe eighth or seventh. They really need to get. Yeah, I think they've improved in elements for sure. How it clicks on the ice is the more important bit, and they've got to improve this year. They can't be the wooden spoon holders again. They can't finish bottom, and ninth isn't a success. You have to finish playoffs. This is the fourth season going into the club. They've made two statement import signings in Britnell and Dunbar, signing from big teams in Swindon and big team in Solway, where I didn't really think Dunbar was going to leave. I didn't see it coming. And they've signed Josh Batch from the Devils, yeah. So they've got to get playoffs this year.
Yeah. But ones to watch because I know you kind of answered it, Dan, with the expectations. A lot of young players and a lot of new players, a lot of obvious ones to watch shouts. But who wants to go for Dan? I'll go to you first. Who is your ones to watch for the Bristol Pitbulls?
I mean, mine's quite an obvious one, but I'm gonna go with Jacob Bryceland.
Okay,
Um, I think he picked up his first point in Cardiff in the first game of the season in pre-season, picked up that assist, and I think he's a guy that's going to come in. I think just playing those elite league games of being around that elite league locker room very early on this season, I think the confidence he's going to bring into the National League season is going to be massive for him. And I think if he starts the season off hot and starts getting going, I think he could be a guy that really does pick up the points. And at such a young age as well, I think he's very exciting and yeah, one to watch for Bristol.
Yeah, I know Devils fans are quite excited watching him as well. Charlie, who's your ones to watch?
I'm gonna go for Reece Smetham. I
Okay,
think
yeah.
he's going into his second year. 22. He's got his brother, so he's gonna try a bit harder just to make sure he's better than him. And yeah, I think for me, if he's not played in the top six, I'll be very surprised. He could be that guy to go with Britnell and Dunbar if they go together, or he could be that guy to play with Harewood on the second line. But I think Smetham has a big role this year, and I think he needs to find that consistency in his game, which comes with time. He's 22. He's becoming that kind of yeah, he's he's becoming more experienced in this league each game he plays, and I think yeah, it'd be a big year for him.
I'm gonna go with, and I think I went with him last year or year before. I'm gonna go Jacob Whiteside. I mentioned him earlier. Bags of talent. And I think he's gonna have a D man who's gonna help him this season in Josh Batch. So I think it's a big season for him, and hopefully he can get a goal this year. He loves getting the assist, but I really do believe he's got that shot to get a few goals from the point. But yeah, I'm going to go with Jacob Whitesay. That wraps it up then for our Bristol Pitbulls episode. Sorry we didn't have an interview on it. We did ask around, but I know a lot of players are busier coming to the point where it is crunch time of the season. And I know they've got a big weekend against the Telford Tigers. I think Bristol playing that first weekend. So that'll be interesting. And then they play the Bison Dan, which will be a really good
Oh,
clash. I think that'll be very, very well matched. So yeah, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. I think we've covered pretty much everything. As I said, if you haven't watched some of the specials we've done already on other teams, go watch them. We got one more, which is the Sheffield Steel Dogs one, which we'll post also this week. But we'll see you in the next one. Peace.